beautiful people, and welcome to Gumbo for the Soul. My podcast was inspired by my cookbooks. My cookbooks are available on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, and Books A Million. Today is Think About It Thursday, and I just want to share some things or some thoughts. We're going to discuss one thing that I think we should really take a good look at. Um, a lot of times when I'm doing my affirmations in the mornings, and then of course I do affirmations, throughout the day, and I also do self reflection. And in those self reflections and during those affirmations, I stay in a prayerful attitude, all during the day, and that kind of helps me to, whenever I, go through a stressful or frustrating event during the day, it helps to stay in a prayerful mind or a prayerful attitude. I know the Bible says we should pray without ceasing, and that has always been my understanding is I need to keep myself and always have a prayerful attitude or stay in a prayerful frame of mind. Um, One thing I want us to think about is what does the Bible say about discipline? Like, what does the Bible say about spanking? Contrary to popular belief, there really aren't any verses that state that you're supposed to spank your children. Um, there's really no scripture that says that we are supposed to spank or we are supposed to, hit or beat our children. I would just say this from the research that I've done, over the years, whether in the Bible or, when I was going to school, for my teaching career, we had to take, child psychology, and we also had to take adult psychology. And it really, explained a lot to me about, the way that we think as adults and the way that, children think as well. It talks a lot about, children's behavior and adult behavior. One of the classes we had to take was, about classroom management. And, it talks a lot about how you have to form a good or positive relationship with your students in your classroom, in order for you to, maintain, um, control, or in order for you to be able to manage your classroom, you have to have a good relationship with your students, meaning they actually have to like you. They actually have to like the person that's teaching them. They actually have to like the person that is, expecting them to have, good behavior. So, if you just logically think about the situation, with us as adults, do we learn better from people when they hit us and when they yell at us? Do we trust people that hit us or yell at us? I mean, are we able to, perform well at a job if we have a boss, or a leader that is, yelling at us, fussing at us, hitting on us, threatening us? No, we don't learn. We don't learn, in that environment, and we don't do well in that environment, and we don't perform well in that environment. So, why do we think it's okay, for, us to treat our children that way? And like I said, with me being an educator, we ended up with a byproduct of whatever the child was getting at home. So if the child is being yelled at, fussed at, being hit on at home every time they don't do something, that the parent likes, them they get to school, we get the byproduct of that, whether either they're going to shut down and they're not going to be very responsive to us in the classroom, or they're going to be aggressive. They're going to think it's okay, for them to act the same way they see the behavior they get at home. So all in all, at the end of the day, if you just logically think about the way that um, I say we were disciplined, or the way that we believe children should be disciplined, I mean, I think we need to think about that. I think we need to rethink that. The way we look at and the way we feel about, discipline a child. Um, Whenever I think about, the God I serve, I know He disciplines us, but the root word of discipline is disciple. Disciple is a student. I mean, if you're teaching someone, it requires patience, connection. I mean, we should be searching for the meaning behind the behavior, modeling behavior, teaching them how they should act, guiding them and training them. It shouldn't be about hitting them and making them, do things because they're afraid. Because if you think about it as an adult, if you think back to your childhood, a lot of the things that you didn't do when you were a child, it wasn't because you felt like you shouldn't do it. It was because you were afraid that you would get caught. An obedient child is not going to always be a respectful child. A lot of times, children do things or don't. They either do or they don't do things because they're afraid of what the consequence is going to be. So that's what I want us to think about. Like, how are we raising our children? How were you raised? And then how are we raising our children? And also think about how did you turn out? Because, I do hear that a lot. Well, the way I was disciplined and everything, I turned out okay. Um, but you also have to think about it this way. Are you able to express your feelings or do you shut down? Do you do the right thing because you know it's the right thing to do? Or do you do the right thing because you're afraid of what the consequence is going to be? Like, are you intrinsically motivated, meaning that you do things because you want to do the right thing, or are you doing it for either for praise or you fear that you won't get praise for it? Like, why do you follow the laws of the land? Do you follow the laws of the land because you're afraid you're going to get a ticket? Are you afraid you're going to go to jail? A lot of times, like I said, people do things because they're afraid of the consequences. But um, you're not truly doing it because you think it's the right thing to do. You're doing it because, that foundation was laid in your childhood that if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, there's going to be a negative consequence. Also, that's confusing if you think about it. That confuses how we feel about relationships and about how people that love us treat us. So if the person, your parent, for example, this is your parent, they love you and they're taking care of you, but if you don't do what they want you to do, they're gonna hit you and beat you and make you do it. So how does that translate whenever you're an adult and you get into a relationship? How does that translate when you're an adult and you're working on a job? We have to be mindful of how those things affected us. And now that we're adults, and then we also have to think about is that the same way or is that the same environment that I want to raise my child in? The first thing you should remember whenever a child does something, you have to look at your child with eyes of compassion. I mean, the God I serve, He's a compassionate God. He created us. And He's very compassionate when it comes to us. Uh, so you should be compassionate. You shouldn't be short patient. You shouldn't get frustrated. Of course, we're all human beings. We all have feelings. We all have emotions. Sometimes, children do things that frustrate you. Like I said, I have a 2-year old and a 4-year old, and along with everything that I have to, deal with on the personal level, they are 2 and they're 4 and they're boys. They are very active. They like to explore. They are very curious and they are very intelligent. So, um, I get frustrated as well, but I have to remember to look at them with eyes of compassion. This whole transition, this is totally different for them. You know, uh, like I said, I'm a newly single parent now, so everything is different. Like it's just me. It's just me and them. So they're having to adjust to that dynamic as well. Like I'm not able to be rough and tumble and, get out on the floor and wrestle and play with them. Like they're not able to do all those rough and tumble things with me because I'm not physically able to do it. I'm not able to take them to the park by myself. Like I have to have somebody. to go with me just for them to go to the park. So they have some pent up energy. So I have to make allowances for them. With them being 2 and 4, I mean, I can't expect uh, things out of them being 2 and 4 that I would expect out of an older child. Like, I have to let them be children. I have to let them learn. I have to let them explore. But if I don't have anything for them to do or anything for them to play with, uh, of course they're gonna get into things and mess with things that they shouldn't mess with because I haven't given them or provided them with anything to do, to keep them busy or to keep them, occupied or to keep them interested. So when I'm observing something that they're doing that I don't like, I need to ask myself 2 questions. What is their behavior really saying, and what does my child really need? So I need to respond immediately. I need to make eye contact, give them undivided attention, and I need to physically lead my child through a real life do over. So, say if he threw something or he spilled something, I need to physically show him, and I can't fuss at him for something that I haven't taught him. So if I'm upset because he's yelling because he's upset about something, but if I haven't modeled for him like the correct way to handle that emotion, then I should not be frustrated because I can't expect something out of him that I haven't taught him how to do, and I can't expect something out of him that he hasn't been able to practice. So I have to lead by example. I have to show him what it feels like. I have to identify when I'm frustrated, and I have to model for him, the correct way to handle frustration. Okay, so the other part of it is when I'm disciplining my child, is it about him or is it about me? Am I, trying to discipline him because I'm angry? Am I worried about what other people think about me and my parenting? Or am I worried about my child and what type of human being he's going to turn out to be? Like, what is my primary goal? Like, am I trying to make sure that he has right behavior, or am I focused on building a strong and healthy relationship that enables him to learn and grow? They're not gonna learn anything if I don't allow them to learn it. Like, I have to allow them to make mistakes, and I have to realize that we are working together. So I have to show him what it looks like to work together. I have to show him what it looks like to be a good listener. So I want him to listen to me. So I in turn have to show him that I listen to him as well. So that's what I want us to think about on this Think About It Thursday. Is that discipline is not about fear. Discipline is not about control. Discipline is about working together, and our children, they are disciples, they are students. um, we have to also think about what we do now and what kind of foundation we're laying and what kind of human beings they will become whenever they are adults. We want them to be able to be verbal, to be able to stand up for themselves, and to be able to do what's right and stand up for what's right. So it's okay to apologize to your children, and it's okay to treat your children like a human being. Everything is not about control. Everything is not about making them do what you want them to do. You want them to learn and you want them to grow, and you have to create a safe environment. You have to make it okay for them to talk to you. You have to make it okay for them to tell you whenever they're upset. You have to make it okay for them to be able to come to you and tell you how they feel. Um, we just have to make it okay. We just have to make our environment be a warm and loving environment. It should be their happy place. It should be a safe place for them, and they should be able to learn how to self-regulate or be in control of their emotions at home, because you don't want them to have all these emotions pent up, you know, because they can't react, they can't show how they feel at home, and then they have outbursts. They have outbursts when they're not at home. They need to know and be able to identify what their emotions are, and you should be able to help them to uh, regulate. That's called co-regulation. Like, you should be able to sit with them and walk them through those big feelings. So, if they're having a meltdown or falling out or whatever you want to call it, it's only because they don't know how to handle whatever emotion that they're feeling. So it's up to us to be there with them, not yell at them, not send them out the room, not leave them in the room by themselves. Now, if you don't know how to handle it without yelling, then it's okay to take a moment. But then you come back, once you regroup, you come back and you sit with them and you say, okay, uh, I understand that you're feeling this way or that way. And you just sit with them until it's over with. Like, don't get embarrassed. Don't worry about what other people think. Let them have that emotion. But one thing I have learned is that I'm a preventative person. So if it's something that I know that's going to cause my child to fall out or have a meltdown, I try to be prepared with when I pack the bag when we're going somewhere. I try to bring toys. I try to bring snacks. I try to have plenty of juice cups. I try to have several options and to try to prevent any of those fallouts or meltdowns when we get into the public. I try to make sure they've already eaten if we have to go somewhere. Try to make sure they've already gone to the restroom. Any of the things that might trigger them to have a big emotion that they can't handle. I try to be prepared for that, but you can't always be prepared. So you just have to prepare yourself mentally and emotionally to just sit and be there with the child. Don't freak out. Don't fall out. Don't yell. Don't fuss. Allow them to have their moment. And be there for them. Because they still need to feel that you love them and that you are still there for them, even after they have the meltdown or the fallout or whatever you want to call it. And don't feel embarrassed. You have to tell yourself that you are looking at the long term. You have a long term goal in mind. You want to raise an individual that can identify their feelings and talk about their feelings, and they know how to regulate themselves. So you have to teach them how to regulate their emotions. And the only way you can teach them how to regulate them is to let them have their feelings, let them feel their feelings, and then you have to model for them how to react to those feelings. But it's not the best thing to do it while they're falling out or while they're yelling. The best way to do it is afterwards. Because if you think about yourself, if you're freaking out, if you're falling out, if you're upset, if you're upset about something, it's kind of hard for you to listen. It's kind of hard for you to learn something new if you're in the middle of feeling some type of emotion. So it's best for you to wait until after they have rolled through the wave of that emotion. That's the best thing. And the worst thing to say is calm down. Don't say calm down. Because just imagine how you feel when you're upset. How do you feel when somebody's constantly telling you to calm down over and over? Sometimes you just need a person to just sit there with you through whatever you're feeling. So we want to raise a generation uh, of adults that know how to verbalize and know how to express themselves. A lot of times we're dealing with the aftermath of being raised by a generation who did not know how to express their emotions, did not know how to express their feelings. A lot of times, expressing your feelings as a child will get you popped or spanked, or you weren't allowed to show any kind of emotion unless it was happiness. But we need to raise a generation of adults that know how to express themselves and handle their emotions, because how can we expect them to be in healthy relationships and be productive you know adults if they don't know how to express themselves? Adults that don't know how to express themselves, they normally end up either being abused or being the abuser. um I know a lot of males, and not 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 trying to talk about a whole generation or anybody in particular, but I'm raising boys, and I want to raise them into young men, young gentlemen who know how to express themselves, who know how to verbalize, who don't shut down, and they know that they can express themselves, and they know how to communicate, and they know how to articulate how they're feeling. That will cut down on a lot of the disrespect, and a lot of the things that we see in relationships nowadays, from the I say coming from either side, we don't know how to communicate, and it's because we were not shown how to communicate. We were not allowed to have feelings or, express ourselves when we were children. But I'm hoping to, reverse that with this generation. So not only with my boys, but any child that crosses my path, I want them to know that it's okay to feel your feelings. Um, I don't want them to have a childhood that they have to recover from. And like I said, I mean, I have a therapist, so having a therapist is okay. And I don't want them to have to go to therapy. I want them, if they choose to go to therapy, then that's fine. But I don't want them to have to go to therapy. I'm trying to lay a good foundation with them now. With the at the young age they are, and set a precedence. So they will understand that. You know, so that's what I want to think about on this. Think about it Thursday. Um, we have to create that environment for our children. And as always, we are smart, we are blessed, we are loved, and we can do anything. Thanks for listening. Until next time.